Okay, and we are recording. I'm Rodrigo Torres, and I'm here with my uncle
I'm David
David,
Straub.
David Straub. And we love YouTube. We love watching things on YouTube, and I thought it would be really nice to have a conversation with my uncle and talk about things that he loves. And one of those things is photography. So we thought that we would have a conversation about photography.
Good plan.
Yeah. And we'll just put it out there and it'll be like a message in a bottle and we'll see for posterity. So tell me a little bit about what interested you about photography. What got you into photography?
Well, I'm sure it was my father's influence. He was always an avid photographer, but of course he was busy working and he had a large family to support. And so he just took a lot of slides. Um, he introduced me to, like, he had a Rolleiflex camera, which was really nice, state of the art back in the 1950s. And that's what I grew up seeing and my expectations of photography were. And so I was interested.
Wow. I didn't know that about my grandpa.
Oh yeah, it was, I don't know if he ever had a darkroom. He must have had a darkroom at some point. But I know I had a darkroom that after the second child was born, I no longer had a darkroom. My darkroom became the nursery.
Oh,
So kind of lost interest for a little while. It was busy.
so you're saying you had a dark room.
Correct.
And do you think grandpa had a dark room?
Um, Not in my experience.
Right, yeah. Okay. So you had it,
But
yeah.
my
So
brother
you
Larry,
really, sorry?
uh, my brother Larry had a enlarger set up in the basement of our house in Kew Gardens in Queens, and he taught me how to. At that point, I learned about developing and negatives and
Oh,
all
very
kinds
cool.
of
So
stuff.
Larry was also interested in photography.
Right, and he actually had a darkroom set up underneath the stairs. He had a little. There was a dark closet in there with,
Ah,
with a little safe light
oh,
and
outside.
trays of chemicals. He just
Right.
spent many hours in there.
Wow. And how old were you when you were doing this?
Well, probably 10 or 12.
Wow. Was it like magic to see the images come up?
Magic is exactly the word that comes. Uh, and it's still to this day, when you see, if you're ever developing stuff and you see it come into existence, it just, it's still very magical. Uh, I worked as a cameraman for a photolithography company. That's my first job in photolithography. And so it was making images, making negatives that were like 24 by 30 inches. So they're really big. Boy, by rolls of film, and you have to, it was all in a darkroom environment with safe lights all around. So you had to then have this huge camera, the copy camera, and would copy whatever the artists had prepared, which was in our case was ads. So it was with overlays, and you'd shoot one layer for each overlay, one piece of film, and then put them in the next phase. The photo stripper would take the those elements and put them together and register them so that they could be printed in succession, however many colors you had. It was very
Cool.
good. It was the point I'm making there is that so you have this huge piece of film. It was,
Wow.
and you'd lower into this huge vat of developer.
Wow.
Well, and you'd have to watch it and you'd see the whole, it would just be kind of fuzzy and it would get more and more definition until it reached its height of definition. Then you take it out and you put it in the fixer to stop the process. And then you'd wash it, get all the chemicals off and dry it. And you have all these clips on the and wires hanging around. So you just, oh, it was very, I wouldn't say craftsman-like, but it was a lot. It was tremendous fun and tremendously exciting for me.
Yeah. I have so many questions. So you said it's safe lights?
Safe light, yeah. Safe light is one that the film is not sensitive to. So generally speaking, it's a red light.
Red light, yeah.
Is a black and white film. This is all referred to black and white film because color film has to be done in total darkness.
Oh, wow.
That's a whole different ball game.
So
Nowhere
you're
is fun.
sorry.
Nowhere is fun. It's more of a scientific thing every time. But you end up with a negative in either case, just their
I
color.
see.
So a safe light, you have to have a safe light for a black and white film, and whether it was photo film, photo lith film we used in printing, which was a extremely high density, high definition, and high contrast. So there's no grays in that kind of film.
Oh, wow. There's just like black and white without grays?
Exactly. So you don't get any. It's like the silhouettes I was showing you before. Just like a total.
Oh, wow. And it's the type of film that determines that?
Correct. Yeah. The normal film, pan film, is what you would use in a camera. Uh, so that goes through all. It produces a continuous tone, uh, so that you can get grays and anywhere from totally black to totally clear, and anything in
In
between.
between, right? But then there's the type of film that just gives you just the blacks and the whites.
Right. So you'd use that, for typically for if you were doing a poster that said sale on it in big letters, it would just be just take the words and they would come out uh, clear, and the background, the white background, would come out black, black, black. So there'd be a sharp definition between the positive and the negative.
I see. So
Yeah,
so you get so the whole point of this process is to take something that an artist has put together
right.
on a like a
Artboard.
drawing,
Yeah, an artboard.
an artboard,
Yeah,
and then you need to, in order to make that into a poster, you need to decompose it into layers.
correct.
Okay, and
Right.
so then you take a picture, so that's the
Picture
big
of,
camera,
yes,
and
the
you put the artboard with the artist's work on
in
the
the camera with a focus.
underneath.
You focus it. It
The
was a
camera's on top.
well. This is the way we had it set. There are both ways to do with commercial cameras. there are vertical ones and horizontal.
Oh,
I learned to do it on a horizontal camera so that in the outside, it was a room. The dark room there's a door there. You go in, you close it, and it was all safe light in there. That's where you do all the magic with the film and the developing. When you were go outside, you would set the camera up, you'd set the artwork in the copy board, you put it down, and you turn that so it's vertical. That's on a hinged uh, frame. So we with glass in front, you send that make that vertical, and then that was hooked up with a series of pulleys and chains and stuff. And you go back in the darkroom, the back of the camera, which was 24 by 30, was a piece of ground glass. And when you turn the lights on outside, it had very bright lights to evenly illuminate the artwork. You could focus with that. It was a couple of series of different wheels that you would move,
oh,
and so you could get the basic size you wanted, and there's a couple of things you had to adjust, and then you could fine tune it until you were happy that it was perfectly in focus. And then you'd remove the ground glass. That was on a hinge door, and there was another hinge door with a vacuum back, and you'd put the film on there, turn the vacuum on, and you close that. So that would still be in the darkroom. That point, you turn the lights on, make your exposure, then you turn the lights off, take the film out, turn off the vacuum, you lift it off, and you go to the vats where the developer was, the fixer and the stop bath and whatever you had over there. And you do your magic. You had this big clock on the top there to help give you a little guidance on things. There was with a luminous dial, so it just kept going around and around, so you could keep track of what the timing was. Then you ended up
wow.
with a negative, and you'd pass it along to the next step, which was what I used to do later on in life, was being a photo stripper. You take the negative and you'd position it, you'd figure out how you wanted to lay it out on the printed sheet, and you might multiply it. You duplicate it as many times as you needed to fill up the sheet, and then you just lay it out. And then from that you would make a plate. You take your sheet there, they call them flats, where you have all the images put up, and you'd be all taped down, and that would be like a great big negative. And so again, you'd just be making a big contact sheet, and you lay that on top of a plate, which was a photosensitized metal, aluminum plate or zinc. Again, a big frame. That one didn't require safe light because it was different kind of sensitivity, different range of sensitivity.
Oh,
And that was huge. That was a big guy. It was like 7 feet big, 7 feet wide.
wow.
And you'd crank it down, you'd set it up, and you'd use carbon arc lamps to expose it. So it was
Wow.
something if you looked at it, you would burn your eyes out.
Oh, no.
So you don't look at it, but
No,
it
yeah.
all set up. And then you'd when you finish your exposure, you'd take the plate out and you put that in a big sink, and you'd wash it off with a couple of cat developers, and then wash it down with you clean it off with water, and then put a preservative on that gum arabic solution, so that the image would be stabilized,
Fixed
go to the press, and the press would do whatever they did with it.
with it. Wow. Wow. It's
And you
very
have to do,
involved, a lot of
yeah,
different steps.
you have to do one plate for each color. So if you were doing multicolor work,
Right.
you just have to have, one for yellow, one for blue, one for green.
You made copies then, or you
Correct. Well, you'd have
you
to
made big
do
copies of the big
yeah,
thing? Oh wow.
you have to make separations so that because if it's the background color is going to be, you want to have it clear where the ink is going to go.
Right.
So it has to be like the opposite of whatever it is your original color. There's a simple example. The word sail is on in red type with a
Right.
blue background. You
Right.
need a red plate and a blue plate. The red plate and the reverse of that image would have the blue be all open in the background, and would have to also you have to account for bleeding into the colors. So you have to there are all kinds of techniques of doing that.
Wow. So
So
do the sorry, do the so these are like layers. It's almost like nowadays in Photoshop or whatever where you have different
yeah,
layers. So you're working on
exactly. Except
different layers.
this was a physical layer. This was a real
Right. And so
Photoshop uses the terminology
right,
as principle, and all the different pieces of film were keyed up with you'd have a register system with pins so that the one color would fit exactly on the
oh, I see
you wanted to be.
exactly.
And you'd have when you made them, you'd put register marks on the sheet outside the work area so that when they put it on press, they could it would appear on all the register marks would appear on all the plates, and the pressman would do whatever they do their magic and make the register marks match up, and theoretically the image should just be fine and should be good.
Right. So so the layers are not translucent, right? Or are they?
Well, yeah, well they're translucent where you want the color to be, and they're
Okay.
opaque where you don't want the color to be.
So the word sail,
Yeah,
let's say that's in yellow,
yeah,
and let's say you have an image on in a layer behind it that's blue.
yes.
Are you going to see yellow on blue, or is it going to
No,
become green because of
you
the
have to
blue
knock the
that's
color out because you can't. If you printed yellow and blue together, you may end up with a messy green color.
green, right? Yeah.
But you wanted to, so you have to make an exact uh, contact, a reverse of the word sail, and slightly shrink that image so that it'd be just a little bit of a it shouldn't be visible,
I
but
see.
it is in terms of reality because it's off. If when you see something that's out of register, you know it right away.
Uh-huh.
See it in you know grocery store advertisements in the
Oh, right, when
certain
they're
yeah,
slightly
when it's not quite on,
right, yeah.
you can very easily see that that's not right.
Right. So
So
is
it's
it so are the layers like are they like acetate on top of each other? Like
yes,
okay.
yeah, and there are acetate with various blocking. Either you can use like ruby lith is one way of doing it. You can cut things. It's that's a acetate sheet that's got a red film on it, and you can cut it out uh, at the image, and you just lift it out. Then that's a
Oh
lot of
wow.
fun. I'll show you that sometime. I have
Yeah.
some here.
Yeah, I want to see that.
I can't really.
Very cool. And this process sounds like there's a lot of kind of human involvement with it. Like,
Yeah, it was total, yeah.
yeah,
That's all been replaced now, as you say, by Photoshop and Illustrator.
right,
They take the same concepts, you end up with the same thing. You end up with a plate, or now what's going on is presses go directly from the computer, the operator, to the printed sheet. That the press has got its own whatever, however it works. I never really understood that, but
right,
that's
uh,
computerized.
right. I was
So
thinking about
there's no longer a physical element of an actual negative. It's just the idea of a negative is a
right, a digital.
yes, is a yes, that's the best way to explain that.
Yeah, the idea of a negative. Yeah, yeah. The and I was thinking about the when you were saying that you would have to watch the image come up and then at the right time move it to
Stop it,
fix
yeah,
it. So
right.
that's also very human, like you're having to observe this,
Yeah,
and it depends on you
yeah. That's
how well or how badly it comes out, right?
yeah, and in the case of doing the industrial in the printing mode, it's very clear that, okay, this is it. This is far enough. And you take it. In the case of doing it in your darkroom, doing actual photographs, uh, it's much more subtle. That takes a lot of experience being able to look at a negative and knowing that, well, this is now reached the point where I want it to be. Now I'll take it out and I'll fix it, and I'll stop it, fix it, wash it, and then dry it, because it's always different. There's a wide range of difference. That if it looks good in your in a wet stage, it's going to dry a lot darker.
Oh,
You have to really, but it just takes a lot of experience, a lot of
right.
mistakes, a lot of mistakes.
So you have to sort of know that you need it lighter
Yeah,
because it's going to dry darker.
right. So what you do is like what I would do is if I were doing my home enlarger there, I would do a test strip with a piece of photo paper, and you'd cover the image to various degrees and make incremental exposures so that you'd have 2 seconds, 4 seconds, 6 seconds, 8 seconds, 10 seconds. Then you develop that. If enough of an image that when you dried it and you looked at it, you say, okay, 6 seconds is good here. 6 seconds it needs maybe just a little more than that. That's the way you do that with the test strip.
I see. And you do that per different type of film or different type of images? Like
Well,
what are
you're talking
you
black and
like
white now.
how the test that you do, what is it what information does it give you?
So we're all talking about black and white stuff now.
Right, black and white. Okay, black and white photographs. You're
Um,
testing,
the density of the film, of the darkest point in the film,
right.
how
But
density.
let's say you do your test and you find 6 seconds is what you want.
Yeah.
Does that then work for all of the pictures that you would ever take for
Oh
that
no.
film? Or are you testing that every time you develop a roll of film?
You might do that if you well,
Or does it have to
series
do
of
with because you're combining the chemicals and the chemicals might be slightly different each time?
the chemicals should be the
Okay.
same. They should be the same. We should not use weak chemicals. You gotta keep it, try to have, reliable temperature and freshness.
Let me ask that a different way. Um, how often do you test?
Well, it's kind of like if you're doing a series of pictures, they'll have the same similar. You might get a roll of film that has got 10 pictures that you took at one time.
Oh,
They would all have pretty much the same density
oh,
when you
oh, because of the light that was available when you took the picture.
exactly.
I
Yeah,
see. So you're testing for how the light that you took the picture, how the light conditions when you took the picture, how they come up during the development process.
correct.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it might be that in the same roll of negative, you would develop a roll of negatives, a whole that the next batch of pictures is overexposed. So you'd want to underexpose the exposure, the print to get something usable.
So you're compensating for maybe
You
something
have to
that
compensate for incorrect exposures. But in a perfect world, every exposure would be same and the same value, but it's not that way. Really isn't, particularly black and white in the conditions that existed in my learning how to do this.
right. So yeah, got it. So you're sort of nowadays you would be tweaking like the contrast or settings or the
Yeah,
tint or the black or whatever, but you're doing
accurate.
this in
Yeah,
a physical format that yeah,
exposure. You adjust the exposure and the contrast and the tint
right.
and all the nonsense on the
Right.
whatever.
And you're doing that now. You're doing that through the time that you're putting the photograph into the developing chemicals.
Correct. Yeah. So you can really ruin a piece of ruin a fine picture.
Oh,
Exposure correcting. It's not going to work out the way you would hope.
so so the photograph that you actually put into the chemical, what is
Yeah.
that called?
Well, it's like the concept of latent image.
No, I mean like so you take you put a roll of film into a camera.
Yeah.
You expose the film to light. The light makes an image on the film.
Correct.
Now you have a thing that's a little bit that's the size of the film, right? You have this a little image that's the size
Negative.
of the whatever size film you have.
Yeah. Okay.
And then how do you get from that to the thing that you're dunking into the chemicals?
Well, you take it out of your camera and you put it in the developer. I'm not
But the
really.
film is like this size, right? And the
Yeah.
picture might be like 8
Oh,
by
then
10.
then you enlarge the image. An enlarger is like a reverse camera. It's got a light on it,
Oh,
and it's got a lens and
right.
a flat surface, and you put the image in there, and then you can by raising or lowering it, you can make the image bigger and bigger on the place where you're going to put the paper.
Right, the paper.
Right. The
So
frame.
the piece of paper that that you put under the enlarger, is there a
Yes,
name for that?
that's photo paper.
Photo
That's
paper.
photosensitive. So
Okay,
again, you need a safe light when you're doing that kind of stuff.
right.
You need a safe light in the original film is photosensitive until it's been fixed. It's photosensitive until you've been developed and fixed.
So you have the film and the photo paper, you don't have to, you don't need to develop the film itself, right? The film becomes the negative.
You have to develop the film separately first.
Oh, so you do develop the film.
Yeah, so it's, and then you have a, yeah, okay. All right, all right. I see. I didn't see where this conversation was going. I would have brought examples to show
Oh,
you
okay. All
how
right.
it works out.
Well, maybe next time.
We can get onto
I'm just
that.
trying to conceptualize
Yeah,
like the
those two steps: the original image on a piece of film,
right,
and then you take the piece of film,
right,
expose
right,
that,
right,
you develop that,
right,
dry it,
right.
and then you put that in larger,
Got it.
and that's no longer photosensitive. So you can do that in the bright light. Then when you're ready to make a print, you got to put the safe light on again and position your paper where you want it to be,
Right.
and then you expose that
I see.
your whatever time you want to do, and you develop that.
Right. So yeah, I think why I was asking was because you said you could ruin a picture, and I was thinking, well, you, you you if you still have the negative, you just do it again. But you were
Right.
talking about the first
Yeah.
go around
Right.
of developing the film itself.
I wasn't making a clear distinction there. They're
Right, right.
separate
So
phases.
right. So if you take a picture and you make a mistake in developing the film, then it's gone.
Correct. Yeah.
Your negative is now bad, and you can't yeah, you can't
You
use
really
it.
can't do much with it.
Right.
You can fool around, but it's not going to really be a good picture.
So there's both there's artistry in both parts of both development processes, then the
Yeah.
developing of the film and then the developing on the photographic paper.
Correct. Yeah. And
And when you're developing on the photographic paper and you make a mistake, you just do it again and
right.
get a different.
You can make from that image. You can make a million prints from one piece of film there if you really like.
Right.
You want to do, uh, but you can't. If you have to reshoot the film, then you have to reshoot the film. That's a new ball game.
Reshoot meaning like in the camera, like
Yeah,
we have to
let's
have
make a
we have
new.
to yeah, we have to
Start
go
over again.
outside in the world and take another.
Go to jail.
Do not Pesco.
Do not collect $200. Exactly.
Right. Cool, cool. So we were going to get into the history of photography, but we I was very curious about the whole kind of how you got interested and the whole process.
Yeah.
Uh, do you want to you
Let's
want
go
to
talk about that. Yeah.
say print on this, cut and print on this, or do you want to keep going?
We'll just keep going, and
Okay,
we can do the pictures later on, or tomorrow, or whatever next
we
week
can we can do what?
at a different time.
Okay. Oh yeah. Do the history of photography at a different time.
Right. That's a related but different subject.
Yeah, different subject.
So
Cool.
I'm trying to think. So I did go to photography school. I went to. I got a degree in professional photography, commercial photography.
Wow, I did not know this.
Yeah. Um, so I learned a lot about. I had picked up a lot of stuff, doing at home and the like. But I got much more scientific and rigorous in my technique. as a result of going to photography school. That was a good experience. It was nice learning how to operate view cameras, 8x10 cameras, 4x5 cameras.
What
That
are
was
what are view cameras?
view camera is a essentially like a Graflex camera where you would uh, focus on the ground glass at the back of the camera. You'd look physically at the image and you'd focus. There'd be an adjustment on it. So it's the old style camera you see in ancient pictures when they're
Oh, right, with the box and the
in a box on a tripod.
yeah,
And they use a flash powder and
right.
all that kind of good stuff. But and you put your head under a cloth and you can see very well then. You can see what, because you can see the image. Historically, it goes back to the camera obscura, which is the concept that a darkened room, if you have just at one end a small opening, small round opening, say, where the window would be, the image from the outdoors, bright outdoors, it'll be focused, inverted, yes, but it'll be focused on the far wall of the dark room. And a camera is a miniature of that.
Right. It was a whole room. It was like a room in a house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they used
And
to,
they painted it black inside.
that would be, I would say so, except for the wall that's going to receive the image.
Oh, the wall would be white.
You would do that. Yeah. That was used back in the Renaissance.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how far back that goes, but
I
that was
I,
used.
I think I read that I think there's a book by David Hockney that was arguing that like that really changed art
But yeah,
because it became possible to do very realistic artwork because you were basically
right.
putting I guess paper on the wall that would be receiving the image, and then you
I
were
guess we would do the paint directly on the wall.
tracing the image that from the outside,
Get your proportions down. Much
right?
easier to try to figure out. Well, yeah, of course, your dad used to do that with his painting with the what do they call that? It's not the camera obscura, it's a camera lucida,
Right.
which is a device that you look down at an image. A picture here is a right angle lens prism up top, and it's a lit source, and it'll focus the image
Yeah.
on on the surface there. So
Yeah.
your father would have an image, and it would be anybody, depending on how far away you brought it. Every time you brought it further away, it would be bigger on the canvas.
Right. Yeah.
Change
It's
the
almost like the old time like school what are those called? They're not
pantograph. Okay,
um
pantograph. Well,
n- um I want to say projector, but it's not a projector, but it's
over. Yes, like a
yeah, it has the light
yeah.
and the teachers put like the slides that are
Right.
on acetate on the bed of the device and
And
then
now neither of us can remember the name, huh?
no. What
That's
is that
pathetic.
thing called? Yeah, but yeah, it's basically that, right?
Basically, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What? School
Projector. It's a overhead projector.
overhead projector. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah,
That's the concept of the camera lucida.
Lucida.
Yeah,
as opposed to the camera obscura, which is lucidized light, and
right,
obscura is obscurity or darkness.
right. So it's really, I guess the camera obscura came first, the darkened one.
Sure.
They say, well, we don't even need to do that. We can do it this way. It's
Right.
we don't need to have a room every time we want to paint something.
Right. So this camera obscura makes me think of in philosophy Plato's cave, right? Which is the
Ah,
idea,
okay.
right, that uh there's a I guess the allegory that there's a cave and there's people in the cave and there's somebody with light behind them, like maybe, yeah, and then there's puppeteers putting on a shadow play, and people are watching the shadow play,
Right.
and then the allegory is that allegory. The allegory is that we are like those people, and we're what we see is not real. We're just seeing the shadow play. Um, and then somebody gets loose and goes outside and sees the world and oh, the world is much more than like the shadows that we're seeing. Um, so this camera obscura is sort of capturing like the image of the world, right?
Yes, that moment, an instant from a position, from a fixed position.
Right. And it's capturing the landscape that's outside of this room.
Yes.
So you would only get one picture, right? That one landscape, or would
Well, I've seen pictures of there are they would build them that you could turn around. They were pivoted little rooms that
oh
were
wow.
self-contained, and you could turn.
You
Well,
move
it's
the whole room around.
like Thomas Edison's Black Maria studio
Wow.
when he was doing early movies. His studio had a ceiling on one side that was aimed towards the light, but the whole studio could be rotated so that he
Wow.
could get different. That's a
That's
little
heavy
different
duty.
concept. It's
What?
it's looking inward rather than looking outward, but it's taking the light from you're facing this so you can move the studio and get the correct light at all times.
Oh, you mean as the sun shifts, you shift the
Correct. Yeah.
studio?
So he could keep making movies. Otherwise, you'd be limited, and it just expanded the possibilities.
Wow. That's amazing.
All goes
So
back to Plato, right?
sorry.
All goes back to Plato.
Plato, yeah, the shadows. So the and back to Plato, he he kind of didn't think much of artists because he said, well, they're just making a copy of reality. When you paint a picture, you're just when you paint a painting, you're just making a copy of reality. That's not very philosophically good. um
Him.
right, for him. So then we have artwork of just painters just drawing, and then we have the camera obscura. And then how do we get from the camera obscura to photography as with a small camera?
Okay. Well, okay, when they in the 1700s, I guess they were experimenting. They had smaller ones, so you could carry a box around and
Oh,
have a small effect there. Um,
that's like the pinhole camera that we made when
exactly.
we
That's
were
exactly what it is. A
in
pinhole
school.
camera.
Right. So that's what, is that what shrunk down the room, I guess,
Yeah,
right?
but it
So
was still
the camera is really like a shrunken down room.
a universe.
Right.
And now it's how big is the universe now?
Right.
Here's your cell phone, huh?
Yeah. Yeah,
Changed.
it's that big.
The world has
Yeah,
changed.
yeah, yeah. Okay. So pinhole cameras.
Okay. In the 1700s, they because that was a useful tool of having a camera obscura for artists. Uh, the main way of uh, communication back then, pictures for reproduction, was engraving. Okay,
Right.
so geniuses got the idea. Well, we could, if we could take a plate of a etcher's plate, because etcher's plate is a piece of metal,
Yeah,
copper, or
let,
whatever.
let's take a step back and talk about engraving for a moment.
Yeah, okay.
So uh tell me about engraving.
Well, what I'm getting at here is um, you could use the camera obscura if you could photosensitize it, a piece of material, you could have an image that an engraver could take the image that you made on there uh, and use that as a basis for his engraving. Now, the problem was that they didn't have a way of preserving the image. That they could do stuff, the images would not. They would degrade with the photosensitive. They didn't have a way of fixing the image, so that you could make a picture that would last for a few hours as
Oh,
long as you didn't expose it to light.
oh,
And if you that it would continue to um, process if you had exposed it to light. So if you rushed it to an engraver while it was still there, fresh, he could start
oh.
his image. And they developed their own techniques of
But before this whole process, the idea of just engraving,
yeah,
of taking a sheet of metal, I I guess,
using
and scraping out
yeah,
an image, that was an established art form
correct,
going
yeah,
way back, right? To
right,
and 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 you would have to, it's kind of like a negative, right? Because you would make the
yes,
engraving and then you would put ink on that,
yeah. You'd ink it up, you'd go directly from the engraving to
and
the
then you would, that
ink
would be a way to
paper
reproduce an
press.
image
Yeah,
in a printing press.
that's the way it was done back in the day. As a
Right. So and so then what you're saying is that somebody somehow figured out that you could put some sort of chemical onto the metal
correct, to make it
that would
photosensitive,
make it
so it was
photosensitive.
sensitive to light,
Right.
and
Right.
then
Go ahead.
what? So it became a real um, goal of a lot of scientists of the period to do that. And, the one who finally succeeded was what was let me see, Niepce and Daguerre. Now we're talking about history of photography.
Photography. Yeah, yeah. So I have this book, the photography essays and images,
Yeah,
and in here um it says that The first, oh, well, I guess, yeah, I guess we're getting into the history of photography now.
Yeah, yeah.
The first to fix the camera's image in permanent form was Joseph. Yeah, that's Niepce,
Nicefere Niepce.
right?
Yeah.
Sephora Niepce.
And he was an associate of Louis Daguerre. And they were working for years. They worked trying to figure out how to do this. And really the first successful version of this was Daguerre, that would be talking about 1837, where he really succeeded in being able to do the image and fix it so that it wouldn't degrade.
Wow.
So if you've ever made uh, it was light pictures, with the paper and you put a leaf on it.
Oh, vaguely.
What do they call those? Like a heliograph. Uh, and you leave it for a while and you take it out. And you can see the image that's created, but it fades. It's kind of like breathing on a piece of glass, putting your hand on it, and for a brief instant, the glass has the image of your hand
Of
on
your
it.
hand, right? The handprint. Yeah.
But like that, it's gone.
Right.
So that was kind of the problem they were working on.
Right. It's like writing on your mirror after a shower and
Right.
then and then the
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. And then the water dries up and the what you wrote is gone.
Right. So they could do it for brief periods. They could produce images, which was very useful for engravers to make illustrations for well, in newspapers of the period, whatever periodicals, books. Uh,
This was um
or 1800 time, talking about
so you're talking now about daguerreotype or before daguerreotype?
before daguerreotype,
Before
before,
daguerreotype,
yeah.
when it was still sort of like you had this time period that you had to work within.
And even when one of the reasons I think they worked on the plates they worked on was Daguerre himself. They would take the daguerreotype and use that directly on as an engraving plate. So they would, even though the image was permanent, they would use that. They would destroy the Daguerrean image, but they would replace it with the line work that the engravers tools,
Oh,
first daguerreotypes.
oh wow.
So it was used as had a commercial value beyond the interest in taking pictures of things.
So they were
Like,
engraving on top of the plate.
yeah.
And you said there's some commercial value to this
Oh
because
yeah. Then they could do stuff that pictures of people who were in the news at the period, the time. Something like this guy. This is a picture from the 1840s. It's yeah, this is a daguerreotype. And it would the the original work of this, they could take the original daguerreotype and actually scribe into because it was a copper plate with silver finish, and they could just engraving. Copper plate was used for engraving, so they could just copy that, basically do a little action on that copying and print it from that directly from that.
Wow. And so this was were newspapers around but I guess there were
Yeah,
newspapers. And
yeah,
so
the
this was a way
newspapers were
to take to add like very early type of photography to
correct. Yeah,
newspapers.
that was probably the 1840s and 30s. They wanted to liven up newspapers with pictures. That was a new innovation.
Right. Now with pictures.
Right, exactly. Roto
Wow.
reviewer.
Right.
You find your in the roto reviewer.
What?
That's a song. Easter bonnet.
No.
You're in the parade. Someone will take a picture, and that you will find yourself in the rotogravure because
Oh,
it's a picture of you, and they sent it off to the engraver, and the engraver took the picture and made it into a item that appeared in the newspaper.
in the newspaper.
That was
Ro-
the 1930s kind of
oh,
song, I guess.
1930s. So there's a song.
Yeah, Easter Parade. That's a Irving Berlin song,
Oh, Easter Parade.
right?
Okay. Interesting. I'll have to look it up.
It's not that interesting, but
Ro- you said rotogravure?
rotogravure was a process of reproduction uh, that used plates that were rounded, plates that were done on a material that could be put around a cylinder.
Oh.
That was a cylinder printing was a new invention. Was no longer just the individual sheets
Oh.
one at a time. Now they could just keep printing it out on a roll of paper,
Right.
cut it up into sections. That was one of the innovations of the late 19th century, mid to late 19th century, that revolutionized communications,
Right. Late 1800s then.
led to newspaper wars and
Right.
the influence of
Oh.
newspapers.
Yeah, I remember seeing a scene in a movie with a some newspaper, like maybe at the end of 3 Days of the Condor, and they show the story being going to the newspaper,
Right.
and they show the big thing
That's
that's
a common
blowing
image. Yeah.
out
Right.
the newspapers.
That's what I worked in a rotary press thing. Right. We made those big, going back to the original part of the discussion,
Yeah.
when we made your plate making, you make this big plate that would wrap around a cylinder on a press,
Oh wow.
and that would print onto another cylinder, uh, which was kind of a rubberized cylinder blanket. So the ink would flow down, go through the first plate, that would print onto the second cylinder, which had a permanently affixed rubber blanket, and that would roll around down to the where the paper was. The paper
Oh,
fed through and squeezed, and the image would be squeezed from the not from the original plate, but from the intermediate roller
the rubber.
onto the exactly
Oh
onto
wow. It- y- and so this is a more modern invention from what we
yeah,
were talking about earlier, right?
pretty much. It was kind of the state of the art
Oh, okay. So this was
back
still
then.
in the late 1800s?
That's when they were, yeah, the rotary press thing.
Oh, okay. And you said there was a newspaper war?
Well, yeah, because it
Wars?
became huge business, and then the Hearsts and the Pulitzers
Oh,
and period of yellow journalism when they tried to outdo each other.
right. And then Hearst is
William
become,
Randolph Hearst was
right, has the empire in
exactly
the
out in
newspaper
California,
empire in the
San
West,
Simeon.
right?
He made a total fortune and still
San
make
Simeon, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And then immortalized in Citizen Kane.
right. And Patty Hearst. Don't forget Patty Hearst.
Oh, Patty Hearst. Right, yeah.
Must not
In the
forget her.
70s, yeah. Yeah, she got abducted, right? By yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
Vietnamese Liberation Army. That was big
Army,
stuff.
right. Yeah,
Was she guilty? Was she not?
right.
Who's to
But-
fault? Who's to
Right.
blame?
Was the Stockholm syndrome, right? Where the
Right.
yeah, the person that gets abducted identifies with the abductors.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a different discussion. That's
That's
awful.
it's a different, yeah, it's a
Only because of the printing thing there. Connection.
right.
First and the
But
newspaper stuff.
with Citizen Hearst, Citizen Hearst, Citizen Kane, we come kind of full circle to film, right? Which is grows out of photography.
Exactly. Yeah. And then we talked about Thomas Edison was the American inventor of the motion picture. That's argued by certain people.
Oh,
As, some people say it was a French.
yeah.
That's another school of thought. That's
So we're not sure then where it started.
he perfected a system that was widely used and copied. Uh,
Nicely used, sorry, widely used
and copied.
and copied.
So when he spent most of his life at that point with lawyers trying to defend his interests, his copyright interests.
So this was Edison.
Yeah.
And you're saying there's some sort of controversy on whether he was the one that
Really did that.
invented it or
Yeah.
it was if it was invented by in France.
Well, invented independently, and it's like who first flew? Who was the first airplane? Was it the Wright brothers? Was it Santos Dumont? There's a lot of questions about that,
Right, yeah.
depending on what country you're in.
Right. Very interesting.
Tied up with other things, yeah. So that kind of brings us full circle on that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So I know we had some pictures and we didn't go through them, so maybe we'll hold that for next time
sure,
for our next
sure.
conversation.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm running out of steam.
Yeah, that's fine.
I gotta
This
go
is
eat some
good.
turkey soup.
All right. Well, yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Rodrigo.
This has been wonderful. I've learned a lot, and I appreciate your interest and passion in photography, your lifelong interest.
Well, what can I say?
Thank you.
Nothing, nothing.
Nothing.
Thank you for being my nephew. All right.
Thank you for being my uncle.
All right. Well, I'm going to say goodbye now. And
Beautiful.
we'll see you in the near future.
Sounds good. Take care.